everybody, and welcome to another Conversations with Geoff International. I apologize for the late start. Actually had some things to do here that just got me here late. Thank you for showing up today. And for those of you who don't know, our mission is to bring guests in from all over the world that are willing to share their experience around family, business, health, right? From the highest level of degree to a person on the street that have found their way through the comeback, found their gifts through the comeback, right? That stinking thinking became an ally instead of a hindrance, instead of a roadblock that kept it showing up, keeping them stuck. Oh, you guys know what I mean, right? That conversation you're having with yourself about yourself. Ooh, we'll talk about that a little later, right? So anyhow, this is our mission, and to, man, the goal is to leave you with some empowering solutions and tools that you can use right now during the show, certainly after the show, to kind of reset, refocus, reshift your life, right? Oh, man, because listen, you guys know what I believe, man, and then that it's the gift that we have in mastering and understanding the impact of our lives on our lives through the conversation we listen to about ourselves, to ourselves, and then the one that we have that we talk to ourselves about, right? Anyhow, so, man, listen. Today, it's just going to be me. Oftentimes in our show, I'll show up and kind of give you an update on what's going on, what we're doing in the business, and what's going on in my life, right? So you can see things and then give you opportunity to see a little bit behind the scenes of who I am, right? And I believe the title we have today is When the Comeback King Gets Stuck. Right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before I do, let me introduce myself to those of you that don't know me. My name is Geoff Tyson. I am the host of Conversations with Geoff and founder of Comeback King Enterprises, which is all focused on serving, right? Speaking, consulting, and most importantly, collecting what I believe, man, is the opportunities to bring people together, focusing on leadership and vulnerability. Yeah, fellas, we got to get vulnerable. It's time for that. Well overdue. And let me just tell you, the vulnerability is a gift. Man, time to take off the mask, time to stop hiding behind the success, hiding behind, whatever else you do to numb yourself, and find comfort in being vulnerable. So anyway, I wanted to just spend a few moments of your time today, and I ask you, please, please, please make sure you share this message, set up your notification bell, subscribe to the channel, and pass this thing on and be a part of our community. And that community is about people that care, people that are desire to serve, people that want to be epic in the relationships that they have. My wife and I talk about it all the time, encouraging, praising, inspiring, and complimenting all we meet. And guess what? That has to start at home. So we practice that, right? And some days we were epic and some days not so epic. That's real talk for you. But everything is about practice. Everything is about making sure you focus on with intent to get better and cut yourself some slack. Oh, man, listen. Why do I talk about stinking thinking? Because I believe, this is what I believe, man. This is the most underrated, undervalued, underappreciated gift that all humans have. We all have it, right? So that levels the playing field, right? The difference between folks is not so much where they come from, it's their ability to be resourceful. But this tool allows everybody to hit the reset button. Listen, how many times have you been in a situation where the first thing that you think about is how you can't do it? First thing you think about is all the mistakes you may have made. And then you don't even try. After that, you talk yourself out of the game before it even starts. I know I've done that in my life, right? And so, man, I wonder sometimes why people, when I say that, they just kind of take it so nonchalantly. I mean, because we're so accustomed to how our brain operates, how that messaging is, how that narrative is, that we really are kind of almost on hypnotic rhythm, and we're so almost numb to the realities of what I'm saying. So I want to shake you. I want to pinch you a little bit, pull your ear like my auntie used to do, right? She pinched me one time, and I think I may have pinched her back, and I got in trouble. So I want to pinch you today. Allow me to pinch you today and say, hey, stop it. Stop whining about some things that you can control, man. Right? And so I'll give you some examples here. And this is what I want to talk about today when the comeback king gets stuck. Right? So can we get into that? Yeah, all right. So and let me know where you are, where you're coming from, when you hear the message, right? If this resonates with you, most importantly. And remember, this is all about love. Because when you look in the mirror in the morning, or when you look in the mirror throughout the day, I want you to be able to enjoy the person that's looking back at you. I want you to be able to embrace that person that's looking back at you. I don't want you to do like I do a lot of times, to hold your head down or don't even look in the mirror, right? Don't even make that contact, right? That eye-to-eye contact, which is so powerful. When you're looking in the mirror, look deep inside. Who do you see? Do you like who you see? And if you don't, that's okay, because it ain't going to be that way all the time, right? Sometimes you're going to love who's looking back at you. Sometimes you're going to cry about who's looking back at you. But man, what I'm saying to you is this: we can change that process. And when we begin to make those changes, our life begins to change, right? People say, well, how do you do that, Geoff? And it's a very simple process. Pay attention, right? I mean, make a decision to pay attention to how you behave. You have to make a decision, because that decision not to has been made a long time ago. So you're running on a hypnotic rhythm like I was telling you about, right? You're already going to do the same things you did yesterday most of the time, maybe with a little shift, and the day's over and you're back at it again the next day. So pay attention. Become aware of what I'm saying to you. The internal whisper that's going on in your head. When things really get crazy around you, it really starts to get louder. You know that voice. And then you turn around and say, oh, man, I knew I couldn't do that. Well, who am I to think I could do that? Or your friends will tell you that. Your circle of influence and you are what we're talking about here. So be aware of the impact of who is around you and how that's having an effect on you and what you're saying to yourself. One, be aware. Number two, take an inventory of it. Watch it, listen to it, write it down, right? I challenge you, go through your day and tell me how many times you say, I can't, or maybe, or add to, whatever that might be. We all say it, right? So be aware of it, start taking inventory of it, and then simply just begin to practice something new, right? That voice that said you can't do it, you don't say that. I can do anything. Nothing will stop me from reaching my destiny. I will not be denied. You guys know I love to say that. I can do anything. Nothing will stop me from reaching my destiny. I will not be denied. You pick something for yourself, right? Maybe. I will. Not maybe. I will do this most important thing in my day today. I won't put it on the back burner and do a bunch of things that don't matter and then feel like, well, you know how you feel when you do that. How many times have you start out with the intention of doing that needle moving most important thing in your day, having that most important conversation with your loved one or with your employee, with an associate, and for whatever reason, you know the reasons, you don't get to it. And the biggest impact that has is on you. And it just takes away your self-esteem. It takes away fill in the blanks, right? So do that and then practice finding new ways. And listen, I'll be honest with you, there's some stuff in there that has to get dug out. And that's what I specialize in, really being patient with you, helping you get to the real root of the issue, right? Pulling that root out from the root, not just pulling the weed out. And you know anybody been in the garden before, you're pulling the weeds and you just go through and you don't pull the root and the weed, you just pull the weed out. So guess what happens if you don't pull the root out? The weed grows back, grows back faster. So you got to get the root of it, baby. What is it that causes those feelings? What is it that happened to you that you have not resolved? And fellas, and most importantly, when we talk about relationships, the broken hearts, the trust broken. Look, I'll admit it. I grew up trying to hide my feelings because my feelings were hurt. I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like that sensation. And I did everything I could to pretend like it didn't matter. I know I'm not the only fella out there that does that. But listen, you don't have to live the entire life that way, right? And so that's what I help people do kind of get to the root, in particular the gentlemen that are there. But I want to just share just for a minute about, my life and as a comeback king gets stuck and things to do to reclaim your peace, your power, and your purpose. Right? But many of you may know, those of you may not, I'm a cancer survivor, baby. We kicked it in the butt, prostate cancer, and had, it'll be 2 years since the surgery in July. And so every 4 months, though, I have to go in and get my blood drawn. And it's one of those things that you're like, I like to tell you that sometimes, my stinking thinking, I have it at bay. I believe I'm a man of faith. I believe all those things. But man, sometimes life gets heavy on you, right? Other things are going wrong or not going the way you need them to be. And then now this comes up. And look, you can't control the outcome. You can pray and all those other things, but the outcome is going to be the outcome. But every now and then, like this recently, I had my 4-month review a week or so ago. And, it was like, man, I was like emotional, and I was wondering why I'm emotional, and I was a little on edge and kind of in a daze and I pushed back on some things that are really important, like creating these opportunities I have for men and all the stuff around leadership and just really kind of just stuck in funk, man. Who are you, Geoff? Who do you think? Nobody wants to hear what you have to say after helping thousands of people throughout my lifetime in leadership, men and women, right? About uncovering. That's where the name Comeback King came from. It didn't come from me saying I want to be king. Actually, when they started calling me that, I was a little intimidated. I was like, but then they told me it's just because, in their mind, kingdom is about creating the person that they are meant to be, helping them see the depth of their real purpose, helping them see who they really are, right? And getting beyond the stinking thinking without any conditions. My goal has always been, not always, can't say that, but it's been recently to make sure that I give what I can to someone without any condition, because it's been given to me. And that sometimes is listening. Sometimes that's just making that difficult comment, but asking permission first, right? And then just allowing that person to be where they are, when they are where they are, right? I mean, it's not matching. But anyway, so that's how it all came in. So I love that. Anyway, so yeah, guys, I was in some real funk, man, and I got to tell you though, good news. After all that time, energy, and struggle, worrying, and having some doubt, it came back clean, and non-detectable in the blood work, and so I'm going to go from 4 months to six months. And that'll be another year, and then it'll be, it'll continue, because I believe that, God's not done with me yet. Like my dear friend says all the time, Russ Hedges, God's not done with him yet. And that brother's been through it, man. But he shows up, and he's praying for other people all the time. He's caring for other people all the time. And no, he's not being, that one that is all complacent about himself, right? Because he takes care of himself also. He's not a people pleaser. That's just who he is. And that's what makes it so beautiful. Anyway, so at that going on, and then, was that impacted, right? The other work that it's a little difficult, because it really kind of tests my core belief in myself sometimes, that who wants to hear the messaging around, right, leadership and being vulnerable and taking off the mask, right, and all that stuff that people have said, Geoff, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. You've helped so many men, you got to do this, right? So anyways, and so I've been dragging my feet. Some of it is having to do some things I don't really want to do, right? I mean, look, people tell you do the things that you're weak at until you get better at it. I'm saying don't ever do that again. Stop it right now if that's what you're doing. Do what you're great at and find people that can do what you need to do, to have done, right? And so I'm in the process of doing that, but it's a stretch right now because we're recapitalizing, my business, and I still have some other obligations. So cash flow isn't in abundance like I'd like it to be yet, like it has been in the past, but it will be, right? So it's not as easy as it has been, but I know that test is the patience for me. That test is really, really, really proving out what I really believe. And some days I'm high on top of it, and some days I'm not. Well, here's what I know for sure. I show up. I do my best. Some days I got to get in the belief gym stronger than others. I got to stay in that thing. Takes a little longer to get to where I'm standing up straight. It takes a little longer to get to where I'm not listening to that negative stinking thinking chatter that's running in my head. Some days the stinking thinking wins, man. Woo! Then I find myself watching Netflix, or I find myself just, piddling around, avoiding what needs to be done. And we all know that that's not good for us, right? That just pours down, just drains us, right? Making commitments to yourself and not fulfilling those commitments, not standing in those commitments, is the most powerful way of destroying your belief, destroying your energy, right? Because if you can't make a commitment to yourself, there's no way in that you're going to make a commitment to anybody else. And I'm guilty, man. But I've learned to forgive myself. I've learned to show grace. I've had people around me that say, hey, man, what's going on? Surround yourself. That's the other thing. Surround yourself with people that are centered on making sure that they deliver what you need, right? Always have that. Whether it be a mentor or a coach, an inner circle of friends, family members. Man, I'm so grateful for I'm just so grateful. And I had an opportunity here recently to be on my dear friend Russ Hedges' different shows, and an opportunity we talked about different things. And so find the circle of influence that's important for you to have. And make sure you pour into that circle as well, right? So anyway, so listen, make sure that you do a couple of things like I talked about as I kind of wind this thing down. Becoming aware of what's going on, why the chatter, where it's coming from, how it's making you feel. What are you saying? Are you adding to it, or are you taking away from it? And you can get some help, some real help if you need it, right? I mean, I'm not a psychologist, don't claim to be any of that, but my life in the last 30-something years in and around the circle of taking down the walls, surrendering to the crazy and the chaos, stepping into vulnerability, right? Humility, knowing that really is a key, man. Oh, boy, look, I grew up with the story that boys don't cry and be a man. I grew up with the story that sissies cry. I grew up with the story that, don't show your pain. I grew up with the story that hide your emotions. Don't ever let anybody. I used to say that I never let anybody see me sweat, right? I used to call myself the duck, right? Where I'm on the water and just cruising around, but my life below was frantic. I'm doing all I can to stay alive. I'm doing all I can to stay up, right? And I lived that way, man, for the first half of my life, right? Successful. But what is success really? Success isn't what I'm talking. Wasn't the way I was living, man. Right? I mean, I had the things I wanted to do. I could do what I wanted to do, and I had a bunch of houses, and right, and I was a landlord, and just crazy stuff, and then. But man, on the inside, I just was slowly dying, right? Not liking myself, just like disgusted with the behaviors that happen when you really, fellas, you know what I'm talking about, when you really kind of just caught in insanity, doing things that you say you're not going to do, experiencing relationships that aren't healthy for you, right? Going home by yourself when you had a perfect opportunity to create a relationship and doing it all over again the next day, year after year, right? Oh, man. And I knew what a relationship was supposed to be like. Right? I had parents, my mom and dad, man, they were married 44 years before my mom passed. right? And my heroes. And I'll never forget, I was in, I got story, got a call, I had to rush to the hospital, and my mom was in the hospital, and so I'm living out in Connecticut. I'm living this life of luxury and doing all this stuff. I had almost arrived, right? Knotted up, suit, tie. I was getting ready to get promoted to go somewhere out in California, and I got this phone call, and it was my sister saying, "Hey, Geoff, mom's in the hospital, right? Mom ain't never been sick before, right? Pop's never been sick before." So I'm like, oh man. So I get to plane, and I'm pulling up in the big building. Hospitals are big and massive today, and then back then they were too. And then walking down the hallway, and I you echo, you can smell the hospital, right? Stale, clean, just smelling. I'm walking down the hallway, clank, 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 and I get into I can kind of see my family, and as I get closer to the room, so I'm walking into the room, and my siblings they're all kind of lined on the window. I had that, 3 brothers, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. 1 sister passed, and so they're laying there, and I can look over and I see my mom. Right, she's in the hospital bed, man, and she's sitting up, just a beautiful woman, and proud, and sitting there with tubes coming out of her, and my siblings, they were there, and I looked down at the foot of the bed, right, and my father, right, her husband, the man. My pops was the man, right? I mean, he just was anyhow, so he's down there, guys, and he's painting her toenails, right? He had chased my sisters away because he didn't like the way they were doing it. He said, "So I'll do it. Let me do it." Right? So he did this stuff, and he painted her nails, man, and down there painting. And I got to get honest. I was like, and my mom looked at me, and she could see the pain, because I couldn't hide it as much anymore. She knew I wanted what they had, but I was so messed up around that, right? She knew. Moms know, right? And she had a tear roll down her eye as she looked at me. And I like to tell you that my life changed right then, but it didn't, because I was already numb. I got some substances, and so I could go in there and pretend like everything was okay. But I'll tell you this story. It was like, if that was me lying in the hospital bed, right, my family would be there. But there'd be a lot of craziness going out in the hallway, because I was not a good guy. I had multiple relationships. I had to have things around me to kind of make me feel good. So there would be women out in the hallway probably arguing about, why are you here, right? I mean, this is crazy stuff, man. I was not a good guy in that relationship stuff. But what I'll tell you, I realized I had to stop, and my bottom was coming close, right? And my corporate life was getting ready to go super high, take me to another level, or I had to surrender it. And guys, I gotta tell you, I had to surrender, because I couldn't take it anymore. The fun relationships weren't fun anymore. The little substances I was using wasn't fun anymore. The job and the prestige wasn't helping anymore. So I surrendered that stuff, man. I eventually left corporate America and found a recovery process and began a journey. And here's the thing, man. My mom got out of the hospital, and then it's crazy, because Pops went in 30 days after Mom, and he also had, they removed the tumor out of him the size of a grapefruit in his colon, right? Never been sick, never complained. So I'm like, this is all going on in like 35 period of day, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on in my life. But here's the hit, guys. Surrendering that lifestyle and finding a new way to live, owning my part, healing in where I needed to heal, working with people I needed to work with, get honest about things, accepting some things that I couldn't accept before, and doing all that stuff allowed me, when I left corporate America, I was able to sustain myself, because I had a great severance package, and I had homes I could, that help and the comfort. So I had some stuff, but that didn't last as long as it should have, right? But here's the gift. In that process, I no longer hid behind bad relationships and substances and all that. I didn't have anything in my body, anything in my spirit. And I was able to spend time with my mom. And the last 18 months of her life, I was there for her. We healed. And when it came time for her to take that last breath, I can see your chest rising up now as I share it with this story with you. When she took her last breath, man, I got to tell you, I was there holding her hand. We were all there, but I was there. I was present. I wasn't medicated. I wasn't caught up in a bad relationship. I was scared to death of this new way to live. Right? And she knew that I had stopped all the crazy. Wasn't sure what I was going to do, right? I wasn't either at that time. But she knew. And, 6 or 7 years later, my father passed. And it was the same thing. I hadn't gone back to mind-altering crazy things, man. And all those things about hiding, I had learned to face my fears. I had learned to face life on life's terms. I had learned to be okay just being with Geoff. I had learned that life doesn't always go the way you want to, but here's some things you can do to reset, to refocus, and prepare yourself for the next level. And added more self-development training and all the stuff around. So, I'm telling you all this stuff today. It's Stinkin Thinkin. Woo. Ooh, we can still show up at any time. And man, so, I'm not sure where that came from, but here's where it is today. Just a little bit about me and why it's so important to take down the mask, take off the mask, step out from behind the wall, feel your pain, learn to grieve. The grieving process is it's a healing, it's a beautiful thing. The anger, the resentments, the joy, the fear, all those things. There's a few other ones that around the grieving process, man, and embrace it. It's so healing. So anyhow, man, woo. There you go. I just want to say this to you as I leave you. Let's reclaim our peace. Let's reclaim our power and our purpose. Let's do this thing called life and understand that Stinkin Thinkin is part of it, but it doesn't have to rule you. It doesn't have to be the way your life ends up. And if you know some fellas out there that are really crazy and all these things, and you know that they really want something different, but they don't know how, please encourage them to reach out to me. And I've helped a lot of ladies in the same process. But I want to say this to you, that the Stinkin Thinkin does not have to be the end all. Let it be the beginning. Right? What do you mean, Geoff? Well, let's begin to pay attention, to begin to shift how your life goes, how your momentum goes, how your emotions go by paying attention to what chatter you're listening to about yourself from history, from that 5-year-old boy that I was, that already hated himself and was scared to death, didn't know where to go, had these wonderful parents, but they at that time they were doing what they could, they were from that school. Boys are boys and men are men and boys beat men and all that, right? So it wasn't about taking that confusion. My feelings. Parents don't make the mistake. Boys have the same feelings as girls. And statistics will tell you, look it up yourself, the amount of hugs, the physical contact that the boys have and the girls have, grow up at the same age. They grow up 1-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old. The amount of hugs that the boys get stops. The amount of kisses the boys get stop By the time they're 7, it's not, it's very uncommon to be touched. Right? Look it up. Parents, be careful what you do and what you don't do. So anyway, man, let's reclaim our peace, our power, and our purpose. And keep moving forward, baby. Don't let the stinking thinking stop you. Let it be the fuel that moves you forward. Get control of it. Control this mind control, man. It takes practice. Man, I encourage you to get into the mental gym, right? Like I always like to lift curling. I'm lifting, I believe. I'm lifting, I can. I'm lifting, I will. I'm lifting, I must. Like Eric Thomas says, I leave these words to you today. You can, you will, you must. Don't let nothing stop you from reaching your destiny. You shall not be denied. Fellas, take off the mask. Step out from behind the walls. Ladies, if you're living with guys that are hanging behind the wall, you need to make some choices. Because nothing will change until they do. And you can't make them change. So anyhow, man, it's been a great time. You guys have a fantastic day. Don't let nothing stop you from reaching your destiny. You shall not be denied. I believe in you. This thing called life is possible for you to have it in any form that you want. So let's connect. Let's continue this conversation. Thank you all very much for listening to me today. Don't miss the next episode of Conversations with Geoff International. Go back and check out some of the recordings, some of the fantastic guests that we had. And like I always say, don't let nothing stop you from reaching your destiny. You shall not be denied, baby, especially your stinking thinking. Let's get busy changing lives. Talk to you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.